our focus now has been on combining the PD-1, PD-L1 with CTLA-4 inhibitors. Is there another combination that people are excited about in this immunocombo space?
Well, we have so few combination trials, it's hard to...
Well, it's interesting, what's been in the news lately is the IDO story.
Right.
So the IDO inhibitor, without naming one specifically, but the combinations with PD-1 inhibitors.
Yeah.
I think, what I've been impressed by is at least 4 large randomized phase 3 studies are getting off the ground with that combination, based on a small number of patients, from a phase 2 study, which is not unusual in the immunotherapy world. So that, there's a lot of folks banking on that strategy working. Obviously a number of other combinations with other immunotherapy checkpoints, LAG3 and the TIM combinations. I think the vaccines are interesting, but those are still a bit off. But
well, you haven't mentioned one. I want to go back to Dr. Kris, because he's the one advocate for bevacizumab. Is there a role for adding anti-angiogenic therapy like Bev with immunotherapy?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's clearly an additive role, because they probably have complementary mechanisms of action, and I'm sure they're additive. I'm sure they'll add toxicity to each other. And I think the jury's still out about the laboratory data and the clinical data about how much benefit you're going to get beyond additivity. So again, I think if you had a patient that really needed a response and these were 2 safe drugs, it would make some sense to add them, just like you'd add any chemo drug.
Yeah.
Whether there's preclinical data and clinical data that says it's more than additive, I think the jury's out.
Okay. Let's talk about what I think is a very exciting area. I've said for 2 or 3 years that the trial that I'm waiting for, that I think is most important in my mind, is the Pacific trial. Oh. And we have a press release, what, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
I think it was May 12th.
So the Pacific trial, we haven't really moved the bar in the stage 3 chemoradiotherapy arena in a while.
Oh, decades.
Okay.
and it's worse than that.
Okay.
When we tried to increase the dose of radiation, we sadly harmed people.
Yeah.
It wasn't
don't
that
forget, adding bevacizumab didn't do much good either.
Yeah, thanks, Ross.
Bevacizumab did not do much good either.
The harshest editorial I think I've ever seen.
Yes, I know.
But
thanks, Paul.
But it's true. But this kind of makes sense. I mean, we've been talking about how helpful these drugs can be, and it is really going to be a game changer. I think just improving PFS, I think is going to be enough. Whether survival is going to be improved, the time will tell that.
Yeah, we don't know the magnitude of the PFS benefit yet, but it met its endpoint.
Yeah, but I've been trying to get my hands on the trial, so that number is findable. I don't know if somebody here knows that, but it's going to take over. And also, at ASCO, there's going to be a presentation about giving a pembrolizumab after concurrent chemorads. So I think people had some safety issues, so obviously those are gone. The fact that it didn't happen in the Pacific trial, where nearly 500 patients per arm were compared to people that got a placebo, and they didn't have any horrible pulmonary toxicity, I think that is reassuring. That question's been answered, that there's not a huge amount of horrible pulmonary toxicity. So I think it's just going to take over, and it's really good news.
The other thing is it was kind of just a simple design. It didn't really mandate the chemoradiation therapy that you got, and there was no use of consolidation therapy, which I think many of us stopped using a while ago, but it's still relatively popular in the community and
academic centers.
I mean,
you got to give 4 cycles.
So that trial tells you don't need that if you subscribe to those results, which we haven't seen, but it is a major step forward.
Well, we have seen.
We've seen a press release.
Yeah, but let's go back to that Pembro press release last June. It told us exactly what we needed to know about that Pembro versus chemo trial. Right. And I'm sorry that has been combed over. It's 1,000 patients, worldwide trial. I mean, I think it's the data's in the bank.
No, I'm not doubting the data. We just don't know the numbers. Yeah. We haven't seen the magnitude of benefit.
And we don't know overall survival.
But we do know the numbers. Anybody who has the protocol in front of them, you know what it had to be a positive trial.
You know the minimum.
The lower limit of that.
But we all agreed who joined the 1,000 patients who were put on the trial, their docs agreed that that was a reasonable thing to go after.
Right.
Whatever it was. I assume it was many months of improvement.
Well, and it also gives us hope for other efforts, right? So there are good scientific reasons why what happens after chemorads may not be the same thing that happens after surgery. But we do have probably quite a much greater number of patients treated with surgery for goal of cure than chemoradiotherapy, just because of the stage layout of non-small cell lung cancer. We have multiple trials looking at adjuvant PD-1 inhibitors. I'll make a plug for the Alchemist trial, cooperative group effort. And it gives us at least some hint of hope that maybe we might have a positive effort there where we're not just adding months to survival or durable control for a small percentage of patients, but the hope that for the first time in a very long time, we might move the needle on cure.
Raise the tail of the curve, right?
And again, we haven't mentioned that yet about all the drugs we're talking about, but that's to me the most amazing thing about it, that it does that. And when you look at the curves, and again, I think many of you saw the report from Hellman last year at ASCO, that when you biopsy these patients, the residual disease didn't have cancer in it. These are people with stage 4 disease, and you never see that with chemo. Right. You never see that with a TKI. You never see that even with bevacizumab. Yeah. And you see it with these drugs, so it's different. Sadly, it's a minority of patients, but for those people, it's really profound.
Well, I was involved in the START trial. And the START trial, if you remember, was a immunologic manipulation after chemorads in stage 3 disease. It was a very large trial, and there was clearly a signal by administering a vaccine to BLP25 or MUC1 vaccine that in patients who had received concurrent chemorads, that there was about a year difference in median overall survival and respectable Kaplan-Meier curves. And that drug was discontinued in its development for other reasons, but I was hoping that we would see another trial where an immunologic manipulation was done after chemorads. As Jared pointed out, we don't know really the immune system issues that are ongoing after chemorads. It may be a perfect setup for that. In this specific press release was reassuring that finally, after you say decades of not moving the bar, we'll have an option for patients. As you were telling us before, patients will say, what now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so
it's kind of crazy when we give adjuvant therapy after surgery, people with a comparable or even greater degree of risk after chemorads, we give nothing.
Right, I know.